Let's see. All right, we are live and here we go. All right, here we are. Welcome, Jen. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for joining me today at the News with Obi. Thank you for taking out your time to be on the show. I know this was last minute, and shout out to my sister friend Norma for giving me the hookup, which is you. Your resume is robust. Like you have all kinds of experiences. I'm going to read a little bit from the bio that you gave me. So again, everybody, welcome to the News with Obi. Today, we're going to be talking about effective crisis communication for businesses. With everything that is going on, businesses cannot go without saying anything. And we've seen that most of them haven't been saying anything, although that has changed a little bit, but more needs to be done. So Jen is joining me today. Her specialties include marketing and communications for consumer and enterprise technology, personal finance, e-commerce, internet, digital music, digital media, and entertainment, and consumer electronics and wireless. And like I said, Jen is joining us from San Diego, and wherever you're joining us from, I'm in New York. Thank you so much. So Jen, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you really got into communications and how long you've been doing it.
Okay. Yeah. Well, first and foremost, thanks for giving me an excuse to put on makeup, which was great. But yeah, no, I have been in communications for 20-some years now, and I kind of fell into it. I was putting myself through college and working at a PR agency just by happenstance as a receptionist. And I decided while I was trying to do school, it looked like something I could do. So I ended up going into marketing communications and just started working for agencies, and then moved to San Diego and worked for some different companies. And I've been now, other than a brief stint back in-house, I've been doing it for myself for the last 15 years or so.
Oh, that's amazing.
My own agency or doing it independently. So
that's awesome. That you guys need to follow Jen. We'll talk about how you can reach out to her. She's very knowledgeable, and really, if you are a small business owner, individual, like I say, we are, as long as we're on social media, we are a brand. So you also want to be, cognizant of the brand that you're creating for yourself on social media, right? So Jen, let's dive into it. So we see everything that's been going on the last few months, the last few weeks, and this is a crisis, no doubt. We're dealing with two different ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the COVID-19 and of course the social injustice issue that we've been dealing with lately. So talk to us about why it is important that companies and organizations have a crisis communication plan.
So I think the biggest thing to think about is whatever your employees or your customers needed from you a month ago, even a week ago, it's different than what they need today. So you can't. It's very hard to always be business as usual. So you not only need to have a crisis communications plan, but you need to actually have the crisis plan itself, and then you communicate that through your crisis communications plan. So I think it's really important to step back and think about not just what your communications plan is going to be, but what is it? How is your business going to respond to things that happen in the market, whether it's like I said, like a pandemic or the horrible things that are happening this last week, that you have a way to really respond to what your customers are going to need. And a big way of doing that is to talk to them. So if you really want to find out what they need that was different before, you need to constantly be talking to them and find out what is it that has changed, how are they feeling, and then move accordingly based on that.
So when it comes to creating one, what is the process of a business really coming out with a finalized plan that is really suitable for their business?
So then the first thing you want to do is really think about who all of your audience. The first thing you want to do is get your team. So depending on the size of your organization, of course, it could just be you. It could be 5 people. It could be 10 people. But it really is determining who in that organization really recognize who all your audiences are, and then making sure you have a representative for each of those audiences, and then getting together and deciding what is it that we need to address, what are the key things we need to think about, get those all written down on paper, talk to those audiences, and make sure that you're really getting the right messages on what it is that you want to say, who you want to talk to. And then it's really just getting all that down and trying to figure out the best way to, and then of course, I forgot your channels. So you've got, you have what you want to say, you have, and it's not just what you want to say, it's what do your audiences need to hear from you. So It's not exactly what you want them to hear, it's what they need to hear from you. Get that all written down, determine how you're going to get that out to your audiences. And then have a plan in place where when something happens and it's going to change, that you know who you need to talk to, in what order, who on your team needs to be aware, but also needs to approve it, right? So
right.
Or you can't just have one person saying, this is what we're going to say. You have to make sure that you've run it by all the right people so that you're all on board and everybody is in agreement, and then determine how you're going to get that out to people and in what manner. So, and then you really should think about, like we talked about, not what type of crisis could happen, and then what happens when the one comes up that you didn't think about. So you really should be for anything, and a crisis could be as simple as something that is like your whole business goes down because a generator, came unplugged, or it could be something like this that's impacting the entire country, the entire world.
Right.
So it's really thinking about the unknown and how you're going to address it.
And how important is this plan when it comes to communicating with shareholders?
Really important. I think the biggest thing is when you think about your shareholders, it's not just, even no matter what company you are, you have employees, whether it's yourself, other people, you've got your employees, your customers, your partners, other people within the organization or the community that you're working with. And you want to make sure that everyone understands what you stand for, what you're going to do. And so I think what's really important is that you have to, like I said before, you have to really understand what everybody needs. And so what they might have needed last week is not what they need today. And so exactly what you thought they might want to hear last week, they don't want to hear today necessarily. So how do you decide what you need to say and what they need to, what questions? And the way to do that is to talk to them, start asking them what those questions are.
So in terms of what we've seen lately, I know when the pandemic started, I think I got an email from any business I've ever walked into that had my email. I got so many emails about, pandemic, we're going to be closing down this and this and that. But now when it comes to what we see happening in Minnesota, a lot of businesses are not really, these big brands are not really saying much. And I know most of them could say they want to tread lightly when it comes to politics. Is this really a time for business to lay back and not say anything at all?
I think it's never a time to not say anything at all, unless you have nothing to say, right? Or nothing to do. So I think the big thing is what we're seeing, especially right now with a lot of brands, is that it's really not much has changed from 6 years ago when we saw the events in Ferguson. We do have some of the big brands that came out and said, they say that they're standing by you and they want to be, they're supporting you. But I think what's really changed right now is there's much bigger need for action on top of just saying it. So you've got brands who are doing a really good job of getting out there and saying, they're donating money to organizations like Lululemon and what were some of the ones that were Peloton, some other, actually Glossier was a really good one because they're not only donating to just regular organizations, they're actually creating their own to help Black business owners that work with them. So they're not just saying
just showing more than just tweeting or posting something. They need to do more.
Yeah, because you have people who haven't done anything in the past, but maybe not have done anything negative either, but just haven't done anything. And then they're now saying, this feels different. We really need as a company to address systemic racism. And it's not just about saying it, it's about doing something to contribute to getting rid of it. And so we're seeing some of these brands do it. Then you have the other brands who do have a history. So Target, NFL, that might be doing an okay situation now. Like they might be actually trying to help, but they have a history of where they maybe haven't been helping and doing the exact opposite. So they have to address that too. So I think the biggest thing is you have to say something, but it can't just be the words. You have to do something first. It's kind of like having a communications crisis plan. You can't just say something, you have to do something first. So do something and then talk about what you're doing, as opposed to just lip service, right?
Right, exactly. And like you mentioned earlier when we were talking about this, don't do it just because everybody else is doing it. Don't jump on the bandwagon. You really have to genuinely put it out there or do something about it, because when you're not genuine about it, it comes across.
Yeah, and it's kind of like when you talked about the COVID thing. When the COVID thing, when it first started, everybody was getting an email about COVID and what that their business. Well, we all knew it. We already knew that was happening. So just saying it's happening it got everybody started to get a little like, all right, another email about COVID because you're not telling me anything new. I think there's a little bit of a parallel there with what's happening now too. It's like, okay, we all know that racism's bad. We all know that we don't want to do this. We don't want to do this. But until you are actually going to do something that's going to make it change, it's just noise.
Just another email, just another comment.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And for people tuning in, welcome. Thank you for coming in. If you have any questions for Jen, please, we have a comment section. You can type them in and she'll be glad to address any questions that you have. Again, like I mentioned earlier, even if you're not a business, just being online, you are your own brand, and you want to make sure that you are representing yourself well, because employers these days do check our social media to see what we're talking about. So you want to make sure that you are representing yourself properly out there on social media. So why is it important, Jen, that businesses, they have like an online strategy? And what really does having an online strategy entail, especially when it comes to situations, the crisis we've been dealing with?
Well, I think whether you're an online business or not, everybody lives online nowadays, right? So as we all know, one of the benefits of being online is we actually get to see what's happening with the protests, right? Even if the true media isn't there, it's still being reported, right? So same thing with when you're a consumer working and you're with a business, you are, even if you are not in the business physically or on their website, you're checking their competitors, you're looking for pricing. So having a way, people are always going to go online, whether, like you said, whether it's an individual or a business, they're going online, they're looking to see who you are, what you stand for, and what you can do to make my life easier, or, whatever service I'm looking for. Right. So you have to have some kind of strategy that says, okay, if you're going out and looking for me, how do you find me? And how do you make sure that when you do find me, you find what I want you to see about me, not what somebody else might have said last week, right? So I think it's, it really depends on your audience. There's no one line strategy that's going to work for everybody, but it really is looking at your customer base, looking at how are they, how often do they want to be communicated with? How do they usually want to be communicated with? But sometimes, simplest thing of putting up a website, like some businesses, it makes absolute sense to have a presence on Facebook. Some it doesn't. Same thing with Instagram, right? So it really depends. And I hope people, even if you have specific questions around this, it really is depending. Like Instagram, as you know, is very visual. So if you want some brands, it makes a lot of sense. They're selling directly through Instagram, or even if they're not, they're using that channel to demonstrate who they are, what they have. But some brands, it doesn't make sense to do that at all. So it's really have to step back and look at who your audience is and determine what the right channel is for them. And some people like to get a text, and some people want email. So.
Exactly. But when it comes to also, speaking of online strategy, responding, businesses being able to respond online. If somebody from a business posts something that's really, I guess, slightly offensive and not really knowing that it is, how should a business go about responding to that?
So that's a good one too, where you have to really look at the case on a case-by-case basis. So the first thing you want to do is always be monitoring what's happening with your business and be on it immediately. Even if you don't respond, you want to know about it as soon as you can. So set up those alerts on all of your platforms. Make sure that anybody posts something on any channel, on your website, or online, anywhere that it happens, and go check it out immediately. Okay. And then what you'll find is that if it is negative, let's say you get somebody who just had a bad experience and they're not happy. A lot of times you don't need to respond. Sometimes you do, but a lot of times you don't, because what will happen is sometimes somebody will just be mad. They'll, spout off, they'll say something, and then a bunch of other stuff will happen right after that, and it'll get lost. Nobody's going to see it. But then you can't just leave it alone, because what might happen right after you just looked at it is 5 minutes later, somebody else says the same thing, and then you have a problem you really have to address. So you want to stay on top of it. The other thing that can happen, though, is you might have I've seen this happen on Facebook within groups. There'll be like a local restaurant, and somebody will go in and say, oh my God, they're the worst restaurant ever. I had this horrible experience. And like 10 or 15 other customers that loves that restaurant will be, well, you should go talk to the manager, because I've always had a really good experience there. So you don't, the business never has to respond, because their customer took care of it for them. So I think it's really being on top of what it is. But in general, though, if you see a response that's negative, what I still would do is try to reach them privately. See if you can send them a private message. Ask them what the problem is. Offer to, if you can't send it privately, maybe if it's warranted, right? Send a response that says, please contact me directly. I'd love to talk to you and talk about this. Don't get into a public fight on social network, because you can't win that. So I think it's really just you look at it, you want to monitor, you want to, when you find it, continue to monitor it, respond when necessary. Sometimes you'll look at something and there's no merit to it, just wait and see if it disappears, and if it doesn't, then deal with it. And then, like I said, just try your best to make that customer happy, like you would if they walked into your store.
Right. I mean, I guess the customer is always right kind of holds a lot of truth in this situation. Although some in a customer service based industries, some customers do that just to know that they're going to get something free or free service. So I guess it's also important for businesses or business owners to decipher which customers always come in, trying to start something where they can get something else for free. So
and if you think about it, it's not much different than if they come into your storefront, right? You have people sometimes that will come in and just put up a big to-do in front of the other customers so that they can get some special treatment, and you're gonna have that same thing online. You have people that are just gonna always try to do what they can to get special attention, and it's such a case-by-case basis that you just need to really look at it and say, okay, what do I want to do here? But in general, it usually is trying to rectify the issue one-to-one, and then maybe thank them afterwards publicly, like thanks for, if everything is well, and thank them for their input. But sometimes it's just not even worth responding to. But it's a tough line to go back and forth on. But you have to watch it really carefully.
Right. So I don't know about where you are in California. In New York, service industries like I want to say barbershops and beauty salons are not open yet. Those might end up being a phase 3 or phase 4 when it comes to opening up. And those type of businesses really have to be strategic about how they communicate to clients so they can really come back. And after COVID, during this whole COVID-19 situation, what steps or languages should these type of businesses take to assure people that their place of business is safe and sanitary and meets the state expectation when it comes to sanitation?
Okay, so I would say that, so here in California, we just started, I think, stage 2, and they're looking at stage 3. But so some of our salons and the salons, I can't remember if they're even open yet, but if not, they're really close. And then our restaurants have been open with modified rules for probably about a week or so.
Okay.
So I think, and it's good because I've been able to see some of the way that some of the local businesses have done it really well and some not so well. But what you really want to do is, the key thing is to, like you said, you don't really know exactly yet when it's going to happen.
Yeah.
But once that changes and the rules are out there, it's, first, of course, your business is going to follow all those rules, but it's letting your customers know. So if you haven't done it yet, you want to make sure to let them know, hey, when phase 2 happens, or, phase 2, let's say they say on tomorrow, phase 2 is going to take place June 10th. Right. So before June 10th, I would have an email out to you, or whatever your channel is, a communication out to your your customers, letting them know, hey, on this date, we either are or going to open or not going to open. So I've seen, businesses that opened up right away, and then other businesses that were decided they weren't going to open yet because they weren't ready. So what's really important is letting your customers know what you're going to do and why, and how. So, let them know if let's say you are going to open up, say we plan on opening up, we're going to do this, this, and this. And it really is, you want to make sure to have a tone that is, we really care about our customers and our employees, and we're going to open up when it's ready. So whether it's that day or a week later, a good example of this was Best Buy. They had the opportunity to open up when they opened up the retail stores, to come into the store, and they sent out a communication to everybody that said, we talked to our employees, and our employees don't feel that it's safe enough yet.
I heard that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was really good because they let you know that, hey, we would love to open up for you to come in store, but because until our employees are safe, feel safe, then we're going to just do curbside. You can order online and pick it up at curbside. So
that was really good. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, and then there's a local salon that, actually it was a local sushi shop that did a similar thing where they weren't ready the day that it was going to be available to dine in. And they said, we've done a really good job of getting our to-go orders, because they had it set up where if you were individual picking it up, or if you were using one of the, like an Instacart, they had it all set up perfectly. And they did a really good job of explaining, okay, we've got this down. We want to make sure we have it right for dine in before we do that. So here's what we're going to do. We will get back to you with it, as soon as we know. So it's just, every time there's a change, I think it's really important to let your customers know that. So whether it's a change on your end, like you're not going to open yet, you are going to open. Let's say the date for a phase 2 is June 10th, and then something changes and they decide it's not going to be till the 15th. You should get another note out to your customers. So you want to just always keep them up to date on what's happening, and also make sure it's not. I think it's about the tone that's really important too. You want them to know why you're doing it, right? You're doing this because you want to keep your business obviously afloat, but you also want to make your employees and your customers safe.
Right.
And so you want to use a caring tone, make sure it's not like, a school teacher that's like,
right,
you gotta wear a mask, you gotta do this, you want to make sure it's like, we want to make sure everybody has a good experience. It's going to be a little awkward, but make sure that they know what's expected of them as well. So we're going to do this, this, and this, but before you come into our business, you have to do this, this, and this.
Right. Now, based on your experience, would you say that the states or your state, what you've been seeing on television, do you think they've been communicating effectively with the states? Within the states, I mean the government. In terms of reopening and how to move forward. I think the whole phase thing is a good idea. Letting people know. But do you think they've been some kind of effective crisis communication coming from these places?
Yes, I do think here in California they've done a really good job. Our governor has been really good about getting up front of it and letting people know what has to be done before each of these phases is going to move forward. And then on top of that, the local authorities and media have been really good about making sure we know what we have to. So there was even some additional things that at the local level we could do that were above and beyond what the state level was allowing. But they also let everybody know, hey, in order for that to happen, like salons, for instance, they weren't part of phase 2 originally, but then they said, okay, if you can prove this and this within your state, within your county, then we can relax that a bit. So I think there was a lot of really good communication, I feel, from the California, both sides, both businesses and, because I haven't even sensed much frustration from the businesses really. And I could be wrong on that, but I haven't heard any. I feel like most people seem to think it's been pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I know here in New York, I believe upstate New York has tried to, they were in the middle of getting through phase 1 and was supposed to go to phase 2, but the Governor Cuomo had to pause that because some cases started popping up again, and they were upset about that.
Yeah.
So I think I know that they're doing it for the safety of the people first, so.
Yeah, well, on that note, we did have a little of that with the people going to the beaches, right? It was like there was it was either the beaches were closed and then some were open, because you had the difference between beaches that were owned by the state, run by the state versus run by a city.
Okay.
So some would be open, some wouldn't be open. And then you had some towns, but then people took advantage of that. So then all of a sudden you have like hundreds of people at the beach being on top of each other, not wearing masks. And then that was the one time where the governor just did this knee-jerk reaction and said, okay, fine, all the beaches are closed. And then, here in San Diego, our beaches are open, but the parking lots are closed. But you're allowed to walk on the beach, but you can't sit on the beach. There was all these weird rules. But then when he says you have to close them all down, we're like, we were all following the rules. So why do we have to close our beaches? So so there's a little bit of but I think that's just when you're running a state, you have like you said, that very hyper local level. Yeah. It's not always going to jive.
Right. And again, thank you everybody for tuning in. We have a question. Oh, hey. Janine says, hey, Janine, she says, great info. As a small company, we are considering, let me see if I can show this on the screen. Yes. So she says, as a small company, we are considering extending our work from home policy indefinitely. What's the best way to communicate this to our clients while assuring them that our quality and service won't suffer?
That's a really good question. I think what I would do is really focus on what you've been able to achieve already, right? We've all been working from home for almost 3 months now, right? And so I think really focusing on what you've already seen and how there hasn't been any, I assume you're able to do this and you're deciding this because there has been very little loss of services to your clients. So by actually by focusing on that and showing talking to your clients, like we've really been doing a great job. Here's where we're really giving them concrete examples of where you're seeing benefits to having your employees work from home indefinitely, and showing how that's not going to impact their business. That's the focus. So it's really just looking at here's what we are. Here's why it makes sense from our business standpoint, and also why it really is going to benefit you as our client or customer as well.
Well, that's a great question. Thanks for that question, Jenny. I mean, I will also putting myself in her shoes. I'll be, kind of scared that my business will definitely suffer, and I might not have clients come back as well.
Yeah. And I think we're seeing that happen already. So I think it's, I don't think it's whether you're working from home or working in an office. It's how you are adapting your business for this new environment. Because I think, you can meet up somewhere, when it's safe to do that again. So, I've been working from home for, like I said, close to 15 years. And I've had clients I've never met in person, and I've got the business and stayed with the business. So I think you just have to demonstrate this is a benefit for you. It's a cost saving. You don't have to pay for, big fancy offices for whatever your business is. So there's a lot of benefit. I think it's just focusing on all the benefits of that. And as long as your clients aren't seeing, a drop in service, I think everybody, it's really not about that. It's about making sure there's budgets. And I think that's the bigger issue. You've got companies who are, especially if you're in marketing and PR and other types of business, they're cutting those budgets. And so how do you make sure that you're showing your value? And I think whether you're in an office or doing it from your home, as long as you're providing that value, that's the most important part.
Yeah.
And so constantly communicating that, reminding them of why you're needed, here's why you need us and here's why we're doing a good job, and it doesn't matter where we are.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks, Janine. I hope that answers your question. Jen was pretty detailed, so it always is pretty detailed. So thank you so much. And Jen, I mean, this is a little bit off topic from what we have planned today, but I know with everything that we have going on, do you have any tips on how to decompress from the news and seeing everything that's happening? What do you do personally to actually kind of center yourself? And
that is a good question.
Yeah.
That is a really good question. Because this week was tough on that one. I did a really good job most of the time, but not so good yesterday. So, and you're right, you have to disconnect. Yesterday I didn't, and it wasn't good. So I think, for me, it's obviously, I know you're a runner. I am not a real runner, but I've been trying to run like 2 miles a few times a week. And that makes a huge difference, just getting away. Because one of the things I work at home with a young son. My husband works out of the house, which helps. But, it's just the whole schooling and working. And so just finding a way to get time to yourself is so important, whether it's sitting in the backyard by yourself, going out in the patio, going for a walk. But anything you could do to get outside, get air outside, shut your phone off. When I go outside and walk around, I absolutely just don't, Naoma.
She said, especially while we're still in quarantine. Yeah.
I know. Yes. I mean, like I have a sign on my door that says do not enter. And as Naoma will tell you, it's, it is, unless you are bleeding or the house is on fire, do not come in here. So, but anyways, but yeah, I think the biggest thing about depressing is you do need to talk about it. I mean, I talk constantly with my friends about it. I'm either texting them or calling them. I am getting outside. I couldn't run today because my ankle was bothering me. So I did yoga. That was huge. That helped me big time today. So I think it goes back to probably most things. Exercise, put your phone down, and make sure you talk to your loved ones in a way where you're not, it's like almost decompartmentalizing. Find time to put all this aside and spend time with people that you care about if you can right now.
Yeah.
And if not, do something else that gets you focused on yourself and less around everything else. Be selfish for a couple minutes.
Yeah. And I have my friend in Fort Sam. She says, what do you do to stay focused when you work from home?
That is a good question. So it is, normally it wasn't hard for me. So I'm actually used to doing this, but it's never been that hard for me because my kid was at school. My husband was at work. One thing I'm very lucky about is that I have an office. And so I can shut the door and I can, but really, if I really need that time, I can. But I would say it's really hard right now because with a son that is still in his last week of home learning and not really into it, for lack of a better term, I've had to spend a lot more time really compartmentalize my work. So before I could just kind of go throughout the day and, I have a meeting and I can work between there. But what I'm doing now is really letting him know, like, okay, you have to entertain yourself right now. And then I am going to focus on work for a half an hour. And then when I'm done with this, I'm going to go work with you. So for me right now, it's about trying to compartmentalize and focus on whatever I'm doing in the moment, and then make sure I set that time so that I can do what get him to when I need him. And some days I fail at all of it, but that's my goal. My goal is to try to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's important that we all shut down social media for a little bit. I need to take my own advice. I live on social media. I'm always looking for the next news, and I'm a news junkie myself. I even have a shirt that says news junkie on it. So, but I do need to learn how to shut down, because I know in the past week I've woken up in the middle of the night and I'm crying. Like I keep replaying, the video of George Floyd in my head, and I'm literally crying at like midnight, So, yeah, we do need to find ways to really decompress and, shift away. Doesn't mean that we don't know what's going on. Doesn't mean that we're not involved, but for our own sanity, we need to find ways. I run, I do Spartan races. So I force myself, and I'm a morning person. I'm a lock pretty much. So I have to go run in the morning before I could do anything else. Yeah. So if anybody else has any tips on how we can continue to deal with this mentally and emotionally, please type it in. But Jen, in the meantime, can you tell our viewers how we can find you? How can we support your business? I know you've been doing this for 15 years or more, and we really want to come to you for any help that we might need in terms of crisis communication, just communication in general, just all of it.
Yeah. Well, I'm personally pretty, depending on the time and place and whatever's going on, I'm active on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And I'm Jen R. Wilbur on Instagram and Twitter. And then my agency is, you can find us on LinkedIn, and we have a website. It's jrwpr.com. But anytime, if you're listening and you want to connect on LinkedIn and you have a question for me, feel free. Just make sure to send me a note, because I don't just accept requests all the time if it just comes out of nowhere. But if you send me a note, let me know. I'm happy to connect and help you in any way I can.
Right. Yeah, this has been a really informative session. I mean, Jen and I were like really hoping people would ask questions, and I'm glad you guys did, because her and I have talked about our whole segment today quite a few times, so we kind of knew how it was really going to play out. But we thank you guys for chiming in, and thanks to Norma for the hookup. I told Jen she's stuck with me now, so.
Perfect. Remember, I think I said something similar back, like you don't get rid of me that quickly.
So thank you guys so much. If you have any questions, or if you know anybody in the community making a difference, please send them my way. I'd like to have them on the show to discuss what they're doing and how we can help. The News with Obi platform is, of course, a political show to talk about what's going on in the community as well, but I'm all about helping businesses and helping everybody thrive in whatever area that they are in.
Yeah, and I was going to say, if you want, the other thing we think about too is when we're talking about running your business and talking about your employees and your customers, what's happening right now this last week when we're talking about not just the pandemic is check in on your employees and make sure they're doing all right. Right? Yeah. Everybody's really suffering. Like you just said, it's not just about being focused. It's overwhelming. It was already overwhelming, and then we added another level. So, and we know that the Black community, like your Black employees, are probably absolutely, distraught right now. They're having a tough time focusing.
Yeah,
they're having a tough time getting their work done, probably. So it's like talk to them, find out what's going on. And so not only communicate, keep that an open channel with them, because if they need a day off, let's say somebody on your team needs a day off because they just, like you said, they're waking up in the middle of the night, 2:00 in the morning, crying, so they don't sleep. Well, give them a day off to recoup. Give them time to deal with this. Have it. Let them take some of the load off of, like, if they have a deadline, give them a little bit of a break. You know what I mean? It's like there's times when humanity is really important, and how you treat your employees in a time like this isn't just about what you say to the external world and your actions with the external world. It's also what you're going to say to your employees and how you're going to, like you said, walk the walk, right? Don't just say something about this, do something about it. Make sure that everybody's supported. Yeah.
Very true. Thank you so much, Jen, for being on the show tonight. I really appreciate you. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. And let's keep fighting the good fight. Let's keep advocating, and let's keep loving on each other. At the end of the day, we all come from one race, which is the human race. So thank you. Thank you guys so much. And thank you so much, Jen.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you. Have a good evening, everybody.
Bye.